Welcome to another episode of Graceful Touch Speaks Out, where we speak with leading authorities within the scope of health and wellness in a variety of different ways. Today, I have the distinct privilege and pleasure of bringing to you someone that we've talked with before. And the last interview that we had with her was so dynamic and so uplifting that I have asked her to return for another session on Graceful Touch. So the guest today is Lucy Bird Hope, and the topic today is daily alignment, tools to balance your body, mind, and spirit. Lucy, with that said, welcome to the call.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So talk to me a little bit about what you mean. Why daily alignment? What is if I get in a car and and I'm driving in a car and it's not in alignment, it's kind of like going like this. Are you saying our bodies do the same thing?
Yes, definitely. So, Daily Alignment is the name actually of my book. And
Okay.
I came up with that name because I realized that that was how often I needed to align. And alignment, I've found, means checking in with and being aware of and nurturing my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies.
Mm,
So I found that when we can break ourselves into those four parts, that it can be a lot easier to figure out where pain is manifesting, where there's discomfort, where we might be able to get in and do the work to provide well-being with each of those bodies. And I found that by doing this on a daily practice, we can stay in alignment, we can stay in awareness, we can stay in balance, really is a good word for alignment. We can stay balanced more often when we're using those habits and those tools of alignment. It's a lot easier to stay there and to continually nurture being in alignment than to fall totally off and then start again the next week or the next month or the next year. It's easier
sure,
to just keep
sure.
it up.
So you mentioned the four different areas, and we'll investigate those four areas in a bit, but you talked about physical pain. So are you suggesting that physical pain might not actually have a physical a physical platform, but it could be one of those other three areas?
Exactly. So, what I've found is lots of times the pain and discomfort will start in our mental space with our thoughts. And then that will travel and manifest emotionally. And then we'll start feeling bad. And then, sure enough, that will manifest physically as an actual physical disease. I mean, think about the word disease, it means dis-ease.
Mm.
So lots of times that dis-ease starts mentally, goes emotionally, and manifests physically. And that's kind of our last really big warning sign, like, hey, pay attention. I'm loud. I'm
Right.
screaming at you. And lots of times the work that we can do we can rewire our thoughts and nurture and tend to our emotions. And then that physical pain can start subsiding.
So we're talking about physical. That was one of them. That's really the obvious one people kind of see. But then you also mentioned mental, and there was two others. What was the two others?
Yeah, mental, emotional, and even spiritual pain. So what that might look like is so physical pain, we all know that's that really physical discomfort, but it's the same concept in these other bodies. So emotional pain might look like just self self-flagellation, like self basically the opposite of self-love, and then mental pain is usually those painful thoughts where we're shaming or blaming ourselves or others, we're complaining, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're experiencing anxiety, we're experiencing depression, we're experiencing overwhelm. And then spiritual pain can be things like just being angry or frustrated with the state of the world, the state of existence, not believing that there's a benevolent universe really here for us. So it can really be part of any of those different bodies that pain can show up.
So talk to me a little bit about how your book answers those questions.
Hmm. Yeah, great question. So I've broken my book into different sections. So there's a body section, there's a mind section, there's a self-care section, there's a spiritual section, and then there's activities to do in times of crises. But I did that because essentially when we're tapping into our body, the best thing that we can do to create well being in our body is be tapped into our parasympathetic nervous system. So that's that restful, calm state. It's the opposite of fight or flight. Fight or flight is that evolutionary reaction to danger, perceived or real, that shuts off our prefrontal cortex and gets us in those primitive survival based thought processes where we're reacting instead of responding, and our pulse is heightened and our palms are sweaty. So I talk about in the
So
body.
I want to stop you for just a minute because I
Yeah.
think you just said something so essential. Reacting instead of responding.
Mm,
I think the two different platforms, I mean, if people can understand, if the governments of our land could understand how to respond rather than react, I think we would see a different dynamic going on.
definitely, definitely. I found that to be the key to so much. My book really came out of my experiences. I was taking notes on tools and techniques and coping skills that were helping me during a painful time. And so I wrote the book actually to myself and self-bound it, and never intended on on writing a book, and I was encouraged to do it. But that's what I found was biggest for me, was why was I having the intention to remain calm and stable in triggering situations, but then the moment I was in them, I would lose it and I would be angry and I would be reacting, and I couldn't figure out why with the best of intentions. I couldn't keep it together. And so I started studying the fight or flight, and basically that my body was having an automatic reaction to feeling a trigger, and it was thinking my life was being threatened. So I was just going into straight reaction based on reaction as if my life depended on it. And it's just such an extreme response that we don't really need as often these days. So basically, I found, okay, well, what triggers show me I'm in fight or flight? And can I start being aware of those triggers and then in those moments pausing and not doing anything? So I learned that in fight or flight, my pulse quickens, my heart my heart will quicken, my breath will quicken, my palms will get sweaty, my muscles may tremble, and my eyes can dilate. So a dilated pupil lets in more light, which enables me to scan my environment for danger. So I learned to recognize, okay, if all of a sudden I'm breathing really quickly, that means my body is primed to react to danger. Evolutionarily, basically, I'm ready to run, I'm ready to fight. And so I learned to, when I'm experiencing those triggers, that discomfort, I just pause because I know that I'm going to be reacting. So that's a big thing I talk about in the body section, to pause when those things are going on. And then ways to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite of fight or flight. So a couple really easy ones are to check in with your senses. So label everything in your environment, or anything in your environment that you can see, that you can touch, that you can smell, that you can taste, and that you can hear. Hearing is actually our fastest sense. And evolutionarily, that helped our ancestors be readily alerted of approaching danger. But for us, we can use it as a tool to get out of our mind and into our body, which is a grounding technique. So when we're labeling the things we can hear, we're not in our mind worrying about other things. So we're grounded in our body. And another really great technique to use is intentional breathing. So deep breathing puts your body in that parasympathetic nervous system. It invokes your vagus nerve. It benefits your brain, your heart, your digestive system, your immune system. Deep breathing is really amazing. And one of my favorite deep breathing techniques is called box breathing. It's breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, and holding for a count of 4. So you create this kind of box, and it's actually been shown to neutralize your electromagnetic field. It's a really powerful breath technique. So a
Nice.
couple easy ways to tap in there.
So you brought forward a word a couple times and whatnot, and I have an understanding of it, and you obviously have an understanding of it. It's more of a phrase, but then most people, or many people, or at least some people, might not. What exactly do you mean when you say fight or flight?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. So it's an evolutionary automatic reaction in our bodies, and basically it's whenever our bodies think that we are in danger. So that can mean evolutionarily that meant more, oh, we see a bear. Okay, there's a bear. So what would happen is our prefrontal cortex, the part that's responsible for reasoning and rational decision making, shuts down, and our brain works from our survival based reptilian brain. It's called our lizard brain. And basically, it is only thinking about living or dying. So we lose the cerebral part of our brain and we're tapped into that survival based brain. And so what happens is our body releases certain chemicals and hormones that cause us to be ready to either fight or flight. So fight this bear or flight, run from this bear. And what's happened though is with society and technology today, we don't have as many real bears, but our body is mistakenly interpreting our emotions of anxiety or fear or worry as an actual bear and sending our body into that loop of fight or flight where our prefrontal cortex, that thought process is shut down and we're just reacting like as an animalistic reaction, and that causes fighting and yelling and all sorts of disruptive behaviors. So recognizing whenever that's been triggered in you and then just pausing and realigning can be really beneficial to yourself and your relationships.
I've come up with just a couple different things while you were sharing that. Number one, as it relates to a bear concept. Well, I think we can bring that forward into today's world. Right now, I'm sitting next to a window. If all of a sudden the ground started shaking, what would, here I am interviewing you. Where do you think that interview would go at that point? It would become a less situation. I would be going to a safe area in order to get away from glass if we're going to have a major earthquake and whatnot, and to get to a place like maybe under a table or something like that where I can feel a little bit more protected. The other thing that I really felt, now did I get that right, first of all?
Yeah, it's totally. And I love that you highlighted that, yes, this fight or flight serves us. It's totally still necessary. It's just we're in this time, I believe, of figuring out how often to use it. So like that would be a time that fight or flight would save your life, and thank goodness for it, that it would have you reacting. But where it doesn't serve us is say, I am someone who experiences anxiety. So I felt a little, anytime I go to do anything, I get nerves beforehand. And so my body, so like having my fight or flight triggered just because I'm going on a podcast is not a reason for my fight or flight to be triggered.
Right.
So I just recognize it and I do my grounding techniques, and then I join. But it's neat to know, I think we're in this period of figuring out how often it really needs to be used.
And another good example, thank you for that. Another good example of it not working correctly would be something that I'm working with really hard personally, and that is, I've been married 17 years, and I am always perfect. Haha. Um, but sometimes I get my buttons pushed. And when I get my buttons pushed, I want to respond. And one way you respond is with a raised voice and with language and whatnot that I would rather not use. So I've had to deliberately, just like what you're talking about here, I've had to deliberately give myself a timeout when I feel that happening. And wait a minute, I'm 59 years old. I don't need a timeout. Sometimes we do. And kind of, is that what you're going with as it relates to that as well?
Definitely, definitely. And that those were the patterns I was seeing a couple years ago when I was in an intense kind of legal situation. That's where I really found this was so interesting. I would set the intention to stay calm, and then the moment I'd be in there, I'd be just battling right back at them. And that's when I started learning about fight or flight, and that, okay, nothing I'm doing is wrong. This is an automatic response in my body. It's just about recognizing that the response is active, and then just choosing not to continue in that moment and just pausing, because that's all that's happening, is that fight or flight is triggered from probably a time when conflict was survival based way back in the day, when we really were fighting to the death. I imagine that's where it's getting triggered from. It's just we no longer are really in that place, so it's choosing a different option.
Mm. So if you could give your book away free to just one person, would you want, if you could mold that person into and whatnot, just giving that one person a gift, who would you want that one person to be? What would the demographics, the age, who is this book really written for, is basically what I'm asking.
Well, so that's a great question. I would say it's really any age and any gender. It's mostly about what's going on in that person. And I would say it is ideal for anyone who is in overwhelm. It's also ideal for anxiety, anyone who's experiencing a lot of anxiety or depression or PTSD or panic attacks or stress or struggling in those ways. Go ahead.
So aren't all those PTSD, stress, depression, different aspects of the core, which is overwhelm?
I would say so. I definitely agree. And that's why I highlighted overwhelm. One of the things that I did in my book, because as I mentioned, I wrote it to myself. So one of the things that I did out of necessity when I was in that period of overwhelm and experiencing all those symptoms I just mentioned was every concept in the book is only about a page long. It's just the bullet points. It's just the meat of everything. Because I found when I was triggered, I couldn't focus enough to absorb a whole story or read a whole book. I had this stack of awesome books that I knew could help me, but I couldn't get more than a page in. And so I just found that's why I love thinking of this for someone in overwhelm, because it's so simply laid out. Everything is just the bullet points of what you need to know, and you can read it in order. Or what I like to do is some days I'll just let the book fall open and read whatever concept presents itself and just have that be the theme for the day.
So this book is not necessarily a book where you need to read from start to finish in order to glean a good fruit from it. You can, just dive into the middle of it.
Exactly. Like, so here is an example here. So two concepts, and you see it's like nicely laid out so your eyes can easily follow it. So those are two whole tips
Very
right
easy,
there.
very easy to scan.
Yes. And I really just did that for myself. So it's neat how it's come out. And boy, was I in a place of overwhelm, and that was why I needed it really easy to read.
So now that you've written that and you've gotten all the details in your mind, do you find yourself at times picking that book up and it's like, all right, I need some of this for myself today?
Oh, yes. I still read it almost every day. I mean, that's like we talked about at the beginning, that alignment is a daily thing. I mean, if I'm not doing the work, I get right out of alignment. And I am putting these concepts to practice all throughout my day. I am at a place where I'm very peaceful. And that's because probably every 10 seconds, I'm doing a different technique in my head. I'm constantly redirecting my thoughts to be more positive, bringing in self care, radical acceptance, giving everything up to any sort of higher power, and doing those breathing techniques.
So two words you just used that I thought was super cool: radical acceptance. Because I think so often in this world that we're in today, where so many people are not accepted for whatever reason, this reason, that reason, and whatnot. Radical acceptance, not just acceptance. I mean, acceptance is good, but radical acceptance is really foundational to having a healthy mind, body, and spirit in today's world.
Totally. Totally. There's radical acceptance of yourself and of the world. So radical acceptance of the world is kind of like, so you don't have to agree with everything and you don't have to approve of everything. You can just think this is true. And so it removes your need to engage with it and creates more of a neutral, okay, this is just true right now. I don't have to approve of it. I don't have to agree with it, but this is just what's going on. And I found that radical acceptance of yourself brings in another concept of being authentically you. And that's really looking at yourself. Go ahead.
Being authentically you. I just when you say these different phrases, I want to bring them forward because they're powerful. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that they resonate with you. Yeah, being authentically you is really doing a deep dive into yourself, into what your values are, your priorities, what you care about, and then releasing everything else that society or culture taught you or ingrained in you or shaped you to be if you feel like it doesn't fit. And it's really just letting yourself shine as who you are, as maybe the weird person that you are or the different person that you are. And it's embracing the concept that you're someone, not something. Your value isn't equal
Oh,
to
I
what
gotta
you
stop you
do.
again. I gotta stop you again. Sorry. You're someone, not something.
Exactly.
That's so in a world where we are getting AI and all that whole situation, we quickly are losing our identity.
Mhm.
And to know that we are someone and not something, I think that's essential.
It is. It is. It's the concept that what we are isn't equal to, like, our value isn't equal to what we produce or to our career or to how pleased people are with us or to how perfect we are. Our value has nothing to do with that. Our value is inherent because we exist solely as the people that we are. One of my favorite quotes that one of my shamanic teacher told me is that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You are the proof, and you were proven when you were created. And I just really resonate with that concept that I'm not here to do anything. I'm here to experience. I'm here to be. I'm here to let my light shine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if people want to get a hold of your book, how do they do that?
Yeah. So you can go on Amazon. It's Daily Alignment by Lucy Bird Hope, Bird with a Y. And you can also go to my website, which is lucybirdhope.com, Bird with a Y, which is what I have next to my name here. And then my
Right.
Instagram and social are also Lucy Bird Hope.
And if you look down in the left hand next to her name, you will definitely see the entire URL there and whatnot. Now, Lucy, what haven't I asked?
Wow, we've talked some good stuff. I would say I would just love to send a message of empowerment that the power is within you. The power is within all of us. Well-being is natural and flowing to us at all times. It's just about being open to it, being available to it, and aligning yourself with the habits that nurture well-being. And if it sounds like a lot to do any new habits or to make any changes, trust me, I get that. I resonate with that a lot. And one phrase I like to say for that is a mantra, and it's basically just cultivating your relationship with well being can be the first step. So you can just say, I have a positive relationship with well being. I have a positive relationship with new habits. I have a positive relationship with new ideas. I have a positive relationship with well being. And it's neat. It's like a step before the step. You don't have to take any steps towards well-being yet. You can just nurture that you have a positive relationship with well-being, and those things can start coming into your experience that will help you.
So the other thing that you've already talked about, along with that, the positivity, would be radical acceptance. You know, if you're starting to do anything new, let's say you're going to start cooking and you've never cooked before, and the recipe says to do one thing and you do another. That doesn't mean that you failed because the recipe didn't come out. That's where the radical acceptance of your individuality needs to be embraced. And as a result, then next time you can say, okay, I messed up on this point last time. I accept that. Now, let's see if we can take this a step further and get this in the right place.
Totally, yes. And that goes in line with a concept I love called focusing on the positive aspects. So like in this example, the positive aspects would be that you tried something new. You went and cooked. You took the time, you took the energy. You're doing a great job. It's kind of like being your own cheerleader. And so it's just highlighting in your experience or your environment anything that you find positive. And this can be anything as simple as the pleasing color of paint on the wall, or like, I like the blanket behind your head, or beautiful flowers that you see, or the sun beaming in from the window, or things like we were talking about with an experience, like focusing on the part that you tried something new instead of the part that the recipe didn't come out as expected. And that gives you space for that learning curve. Whenever we're trying something new, there's great room and great work available for self-love and self-compassion and being gentle with yourself and being easy on yourself. And so just highlighting what did go right can be a helpful way of self-soothing.
Compared to the other side of the coin where I messed up. I just can't cook. I'm not going to do this again.
Exactly.
You know, that is so devaluing, deflating, and whatnot. Compared to what you're talking about, you're encouraging, you're bringing us up, you're showing ways. Okay, doesn't mean it got right, but look at everything that you did in the process.
Exactly. Exactly. And you said one of my favorite words, encouraging. That is a fascinating word. Encourage or discourage. They're really powerful things to do to ourselves or to others. When we're encouraging, we're giving someone courage. When we're discouraging someone, we're taking away someone's courage. It's really big to encourage ourselves and invoke that courage within ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, my name is Guy Severson. I'm with Graceful Touch, and if you are in Rapid City, South Dakota, you can stop in for a massage, gracefultouch.org, or take a look at any of our over 50 products out on gracefultouchproducts.org. Or like Lucy, I'm on Instagram too, and you can get a hold of me at Pain Relief, the number 4, the letter U, Pain Relief for you, if you want to do a presentation like Lucy has here today, or if you have any other questions for me from a body pain type situation, because that's where I shine. Now, Lucy, coming back over to you and where you shine. If you could only give me one takeaway from this entire call that you would want people to have, what would that be?
Mm, mm. Be you. Be yourself. Be authentically you. Be weird. Be different. Because the wild thing is, all of us really are. So the more that you encourage yourself and allow your light to shine and your goofy self and your silliness and everything that is you to exude into the universe and to radiate, other people can be inspired to do the same. And we might all start taking off these masks that we've been wearing.
Great. That's great, because we really need to take those masks off and be real. Be authentically real. Be radically authentically real.
Yes.
You see? Awesome. So again, you can catch up with Lucy at lucybirdhope.com or on Instagram, or look up her book on Amazon. Can you hold that book up one more time?
Yes, definitely. Daily Alignment by Lucy
Awesome.
Birdhope.
And Lucy, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have a great weekend coming.
Thank you so much. You too. It's been such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.